Coming up today on Good Morning BU.
The student government's chief of staff joins us live in studio about issues impacting the BU community.
And a pride flag hanging in the Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies office draws attention as BU takes down other pride flags across campus.
A third No Kings protest is set to take place in the Boston Common tomorrow.
College basketball playoffs continue, with the first half of the Sweet 16 playing last night.
And a BU alum launches a new app, giving students the ability to create their own marketplace. Live from Studio West in the College of Communication, Good Morning BU starts right now.
Hello and welcome to Good Morning BU. I'm Claire Chen.
And I'm Lily Chapman. Here are today's top stories. In a rare overnight session, the U.S. Senate voted early this morning to fund the Department of Homeland Security. The measure, which does not include funding for immigration and customs enforcement or border control, is a win for Senate Democrats that had refused to fund ICE for weeks. The bill still has to make its way to the House before it lands on President Donald Trump's desk. If President Trump signs it, it should bring an end to the growing TSA crisis at airports across the country, where workers had been without pay for over a month. The House could vote on it as soon as later today.
This Saturday, protesters across the country will gather to protest ongoing concerns over the state of democracy in the United States. Our correspondent Catherine Markello spoke with BU students who will be attending the protests tomorrow.
I'm going just because I want to meet other like-minded students with an interest in politics, and also just because as a student myself, I take issues with the Trump administration.
I mean, I personally am going because I want to protest what's happening in regards to immigration policy right now. I want to protest ICE and a lot of its illegal actions, and then also the war in Iran right now, among a lot of other things.
I'm also really concerned about environmental things, and I think him promoting fossil fuel and everything with the national parks has been really concerning, so I would want to show my support for those issues.
It's really disheartening to just you can't do much about it but speak out, and that's why I want to go to this protest, is because I want to be able to voice my opinions.
And I think it's really important that as young people we take pragmatic action against the administration and really voice our concerns so that we can make an impact.
I just think civic participation is really important for a healthy democracy.
I think it's just also one step closer to kind of making the world maybe hopefully a better place.
I think it's important to kind of build community around people showing up and organizing, so this is really important.
Thanks, Catherine. To give us more insight on tomorrow's protest, our correspondent Caitlin Danas is live in Boston Common. Caitlin?
That's right, Lily. I'm here at Boston Commons, where thousands are expected to gather for the third No Kings protest set for Saturday. This rally comes as a part of a larger national movement that first started last June, aimed at building power and protecting democracy by organizing demonstrations across the country. Last fall, a second round of No Kings protests drew more than 100,000 people to the Boston Common. Organizers say they expect a similar turnout for tomorrow. The rally is set to begin at 2 p.m. with speakers and performers planned for the event. Back to you, Lily.
Thank you, Caitlin. Now, BU's own student government election is coming up quick. The slates running are Aspire to BU, United Front for Change, and Rep BU. We have Rep BU's candidates for President and Vice President of Internal Affairs in studio today to tell us more about their campaign. Vienna, over to you.
All right. Hi, Jace. Hi, Kaina. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. All right. We're so excited you're here. Now, you told the Daily Free Press that Rep BU is a renaissance for the voice of students. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so the main point in articulating it that way is that we feel that student voices have been excluded from the decisions that administration makes for far too long, especially when it comes to consolidating power on campus. So Rep BU is committed to working to make sure that student voices are reshaped and recentered as the universalizing change behind these decisions that are made on campus, especially when it concerns the issues that affect us long after we are gone.
Yeah, and I would add to that that Renaissance type of movement is a testament to the structural reform that we kind of want to have within student government. We recognize that student government is full of incredibly passionate and well-resourced individuals that need, to reinstate meaning into their roles and kind of serve as a mouthpiece for the student body. And so we are truly advocating for reform on multiple levels and kind of ensuring that student government is walking this two-way street where they are going out to students and truly uplifting those voices in a way that, challenges things that fundamentally, don't align with the values of the student body as a whole.
On that topic, you've spoken a lot about wanting to push back on the administration. How do you plan to accomplish your goals while reaching compromise with the administration?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the number one thing to that is genuinely transparency. And so one of our initiatives is a policy tracker that gets updated live for students to be able to view the discussions that are being had between student government and administration. I would say that, kind of in speaking to students personally and from my own perspective, challenge is always going to meet pushback, especially from an administration such as BU's, but keeping students updated, okay, the administration said no, this is how we're going to push back again, can actually create a fight rather than just stagnation at the first stage of asking. And so we are, planning to take a very active approach rather than kind of succumbing to what the administration, wants to surface.
Yeah, simply responding to student concerns with the idea that conversations are happening is not substantive enough when it comes to working toward this change. We need an administration that's more so guided by seeing how we can take tangible action to root out these concerns and keeping students at the center of all those conversations and updated throughout that process.
Mm-hmm. And you are running against Aspire BU, the incumbent slate. What are some specific things they have done that you would do differently?
Yeah, so one of the main things that Bridge to BU ran on was the idea of transparency, especially in talking to the student body. And thus far, we simply haven't seen that type of communication. The student body has received 2 emails from Bridge to BU since the school year started. And now Aspire to BU is running on that similar type of continuity when it comes to pledging this type of transparency while not being able to deliver on it. Rep BU is intensely committed to being able to extend that transparency in every domain of student government while also being able to execute more in that domain.
Absolutely. Now we have to talk about this controversy surrounding the pride flags being removed from offices on campuses. How would you handle this situation as student body representatives?
Yeah. You want to take this?
Yeah, first and foremost, it comes with responding to what's going on instead of being a bit milquetoast in the way that you go about addressing these concerns. For far too long, student government has held its tongue when something like this goes on campus, especially last semester concerning student safety. We never really got any type of substantive statement from student government, nonetheless the administration. So if you aren't truly fighting to advocate for students in this way, what's the point in even having these roles in the first place? So the way that we would approach it is first and foremost, recognizing that this is an issue for students and recognizing that this is something that needs to change in more of a substantive manner. And then actually working with administration to make sure that, okay, this policy has been around since 1982. Why was it not thoroughly enforced beforehand? And what has changed now that requires you guys to enforce it that much more? And being able to have that type of open communication instead of shutting down when you get a sense of pushback.
To add on to that, I would also say that we are definitely in line with the image that BU tries to push out as an institution of being incredibly progressive. And so kind of a follow-up question to that is, why has this policy not been amended in some capacity in order to support greater free speech and expression as, students increasingly feel more comfortable in sharing their identities? I would also add that we are campaigning on this idea of reciprocal support when it comes to community. And kind of going back to that point that I was talking about with your previous question, I think if student government is making a commitment to be transparent with students in the process of having these difficult conversations, that can actually lead to the student body feeling some sort of, you could call it, inspiritedness to actually want to back up the cause as well. When the conversations aren't being had, students feel disenfranchised, disempowered, and the conversation stagnates. If students are being updated that a fight is being had, then there is an opportunity for community support, and it's a lot harder for the university to argue against that than it is just student government representatives on their own. So.
continuing on community and BU and feeling represented, there are a lot of different prevalent student groups who have diverging ideals and ideas. How would you enforce and, support their perspectives without isolating a percentage of the student body?
Yeah, so this all starts with collaboration. One of the main policies that has been made for student government over the past year is this pool of funding that is divulged to the Senate to be able to give to student groups. It used to be that you could directly give student groups a dosage of money, but now you have to write a bill for it to be able to get done. So what one of my clubs, SOLON, our Generational Black American Student Organization, has been able to do is to work with student government to get funding for our events and to work with other clubs on campus to make sure that we are able to create like a cohesive experience for Black students around campus while also being able to concentrate on our niche, which is generational Black Americans. So when it comes to being able to work within these student organizations that might have diverging purposes or may have their own certain niches that they work within, it comes at a time where student groups really need to focus on this sense of collaboration if they intend to preserve the amount of funding that they're getting, because if the university recognizes that maybe this funding isn't being taken advantage of as much as it should, the student groups will lose that, which is an outcome that none of us want.
Yeah, I think Jace is kind of touching on this idea that as it stands, funding is the root cause of a lot of the issues that BU students experience, whether that be recreationally in terms of disconnect. I'm a part of a smaller faith organization on campus, the Sikh Student Organization Association, and I also have a lot of peers and friends that are in smaller organizations, especially organizations that are starting off. And so I think the commonly expressed perspective is that there needs to be transparency when it comes to funding so that student groups can actually make use of what is available. The funding is there. It's a matter of how it's allocated and if it's transparently provided to students to be utilized. So.
All right, now we've spoken a lot about your opponents. What is one thing that you admire about the administrations that you're currently running against?
Yeah, so one thing that I really love about Aspire to BU is just the people they've been able to recruit to the slate. Like Michael was one of my closest friends during freshman year, and same thing with when I was able to meet with Maya. So being able to see that regardless of how the election goes, we'll likely have people at the forefront of the fight for being able to make sure that students have a sense of community in place on campus, and being sure in the fact that we'll be able to have some sense of good stewardship regardless of how the election goes, really gives me like a sense of comfort in the face of all of this.
Absolutely. I think, for most of the slates, the goals are shared. It's just that we have different avenues for approaching them, and I think that's what sets Rep BU apart. And so kind of jumping off of that, I admire Aspire for having a lot of the same goals that we have. It's just that, our initiatives and our plans to do them and the ways in which, we are envisioning that might be different. But I really do admire their commitment to creating long-lasting change.
Absolutely. All right, thank you so much for coming in, you guys. It's really great to hear from you. We're going to toss it back to the desk now.
All right, thank you so much, Fiona, for that update. Now stick around with us after the break for some March Madness updates.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
It's important to get a flu shot each and every year because flu viruses are constantly changing and immunity from the vaccine decreases over time. Flu vaccines are updated annually to work against that year's viruses. The best time to get your shot is in the fall, but getting it later can still help. Getting a flu shot lowers your risk of getting sick, and if you do happen to get flu, it's likely to be less severe.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too...
Hey, sorry. Sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew a girl so smart, so responsible, she must be a keeper.
Eva Marie smoked 12,000 packs of cigarettes over 15 years. She quit, and now there's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking. Now start screening. No matter how much you smoked, early detection could save you. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Welcome back. Though the Tigers might have missed the March Madness tournament, it's unfortunately still happening without us. Hannah, can you give us the updates?
Yeah, Lily, the end of March means one thing: college basketball playoffs are in full swing, and last night saw the first half of the Sweet 16 played. Purdue took down Texas 79-77 on a buzzer-beating tip-in by Trey Kaufman-Renn with just 0.7 seconds remaining. Iowa beat Nebraska 77-71, extending its upset route as they took down top-seeded Florida to punch its ticket to the Sweet 16. Illinois topped Houston, who made the final last year, and Arizona oust at Arkansas 109-88. As for tonight, St. John's is facing top-seeded Duke. Alabama will battle it out with Michigan. Tennessee will square off against Iowa State, and UConn will battle Michigan State. I think UConn and Michigan State is definitely a matchup to watch out for tonight. UConn's championship pedigree speaks for itself, but the Spartans showed early in the season it can compete with anyone at a high level, and they haven't taken home a championship since 2000. But in the new NIL and pay-to-play era of college athletics, there's really only top-seeded teams left in the tournament, so there's truly anyone's game at this point. I had Purdue going really far in my bracket, so they might just be my saving grace. Lily, do you have anyone left in your bracket or a chance to win it all?
Well, Hannah, Duke and Arizona are looking pretty promising, so only time will tell. Now, AI's takeover is making its way into BU's curriculum. Our campus correspondent, Afia Asamoah, has more.
For today's college students, generative AI tools like ChatGPT have become the new normal. A global study by the Digital Education Council says 86% of students use AI for their schoolwork.
It's not obvious for students, it's not obvious for faculty that AI has this challenge of interaction, communication associated with it. And that's what we're good at training our own students here at BU to do.
That's John Byers, a computer science professor at BU and the executive director of the AI Development Accelerator, also called AIDA. He says BU is an AI-forward institution, thanks in part to its AI certificate program, which launched in November of last year.
Being able to put that on your resume and tangibly point to something that BU has offered when you apply for an internship or a job, saying, you know, BU is serious about AI, and I've taken this certificate program here with BU. I think can be a benefit to the students.
Developed by AIDA and the Institute for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, the online course is free of cost and offers self-paced modules that dive into topics like using AI in the workplace. For Terriers like marketing student Stephanie Wijaya, the program helps bridge gaps between people who disagree on the ethics of AI.
I think that, you know, kind of addressing these misconceptions and addressing this kind of controversy and also leading students the right way and how to use AI ethically is a good step forward, yeah.
Stella Cofaro, a junior, says the course helped her embrace AI.
I just want to make sure that I was opening myself up to all these new opportunities that comes with using AI. So I think the course was really beneficial in kind of breaking those myths or misconceptions that I had about AI use.
Cofaro also hopes to see future courses go more in depth into the topic.
If there was a course that specializes for professors specifically, or maybe ones that students and professors can come together, I do think that would be a really great avenue that we could go down.
Here at BU Center for Data Science, I don't need Terrier GPT to tell me that students are adapting to the changing digital landscape. Professor Byers told me he sat down with students from the Humanities and AI Lab to hear their feedback and potentially develop updates to the AI course. For Good Morning BU, I'm Afia Asamoah.
Thanks, Afia. And a new app has launched on campus, created by a BU alum for BU students, where they can take to the charge of their future and create their own marketplace.
That's right, Lily. I'm here with Stella McKay, an ambassador for Campus Collective. Now, thank you, Stella, for coming in.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So for the BU students who don't know what Campus Collective is, could you explain a bit more about it?
Yeah, so Campus Collective is a student-to-student app where you can actually book services with other students through other students on campus, and it's all through your EDU email. So it's completely safe, it's only students allowed on there. And there's really everything from academics, beauty, lifestyle. I mean, you can pretty much find anything on there. I know that there's someone who actually does gene alterations, which is pretty cool. Personally, I do nails on the app, spray tans, you can do tutoring. There's so much on the app.
And I know many of the students with these kind of side hustles, they already had an existing customer base at BU. So as the ambassador for the app, what's your strategy to get those vendors and those existing customers, onto the new app instead?
Yeah, so for me as a vendor, there are so many perks on the app that just make it totally worth it to use. I actually told all of my clients, I'm switching fully to Campus Collective because at the end of the semester, they give you kind of a data rundown of your small business, your data that you can just add to your resume. You can add it to your LinkedIn, which is great for a resume booster. And then you also can just browse on there. You can just see really so much. It has so much to offer. There's so many different marketplaces. It's also with other students from other schools. So right now we just incorporated Northeastern, and we're hoping to add MIT and Harvard, so sort of do the whole Boston area where you can really get access from all other students.
Well, thank you so much. And for students who are looking to get on this app, where can it be downloaded?
You can download it on the App Store, actually.
Okay.
Literally just look up Campus Collective, and it should be right there. You can also find it through Instagram, just website, just browse.
Right. Well, thank you so much for coming in. Now, you all know what I'm downloading after our show close, and I'll hand it back over to you, Lily, at the desk.
All right, thank you so much, Claire. We will be right back after this break for more updates in politics.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you prevent wildfires.
Dude, I've got this. I've been camping since I was 5 years old.
But I am a camping influencer.
You know what? I'll bet you $5. Okay. Assistant Smokey, what is the best way to put out a campfire?
To put out a campfire, drown with water, stir, drown again. Then make sure the fire is out cold by feeling with the back of your hand.
Wait, really?
I'll take the $5.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here. Wait. What?
I can't drive.
Why?
My. Oh.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too...
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew. A girl so smart, so responsible. She must be a keeper.
Welcome back. Boston colleges are under fire this week after a city council hearing where students and faculty voiced concerns over their school administrators. Here with more on the issue is BU Student Government's Chief of Staff with Lily.
I'm McQuilkin. Now, Abraham, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course.
No, at this hearing, we heard students and faculty call out a lack of transparency from universities, and that includes yourself. As you mentioned, that there's an apparent disconnect between the BU administration and the student body, and we have a video clip of that here, so let's take a look.
That the university would be better able to function if students are able to understand the priorities of the administration and Board of Trustees when we make our decisions and when we seek to cooperate in making the university a stronger, better school.
Now, based on that, I'm curious to know what specific instances inspired you to speak out in the first place?
Well, I think what's really central to the university model is the idea of shared governance. And I think that's been so important. And when Northeastern, who put the hearing together, invited us, I felt that it would be, it wouldn't be reasonable to have BU, one of the city's largest institutions, absent. I do feel that if the students were better able to communicate with the administration and the trustees, we would be able to better advocate for the student voice and help them really understand what we need, and then they could help us understand what they need to make the university function well.
Gotcha. And a big issue raised was the lack of student representation, especially with BU's Board of Trustees. What does that actually look like for students day to day?
So the Board of Trustees is a committee of volunteers who essentially run the university, and they have a number of committees which in the past have had student representatives present at those meetings who can voice a student opinion and report back to the students about what the trustees are focusing on, what issues they're trying to solve. Unfortunately, due to a series of reorganizations, that hasn't been the case the past few years. But if we were able to create a system where students were able to understand more about what their priorities are, how they work, and how we can best collaborate, I feel that would be a very productive thing for our university.
And you mentioned students feeling unheard. Where do you think that disconnect is coming from?
Well, I think Boston University is a big place. I think there's a ton of staff and faculty who keep the school running. But I think you can get caught up in the shuffle and forget that students here, have a lot of views, they have a lot of opinions, and it's hard to reach a lot of the high administrators who make the decisions that dictate the course of our lives and time here.
Right, and after this hearing, do you feel like anything is going to change?
I think that's very hard to say. I think, President Gilliam is very new, and I think in these few years she's done a good job getting the lay of the land, and we'll see what she feels is appropriate moving forward.
Is there anything specific that you're hoping happens next?
I think it would be great if students were invited to sit in on trustee meetings, especially the Committee on Student Affairs, which I think it's a little ridiculous that they don't have any student voice present because, as much as I'm sure administrators are trying to figure out what students need and what they want, having a student there would make that much easier.
Right. All right. Well, Abraham, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, Claire, I'm going to toss it back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Lily. Staying on campus, our live shot correspondent Catherine is down the block to give us updates on a controversial piece of campus news.
Thanks, Claire. I'm here outside BU's Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies offices, where this pride flag has become the center of a campus controversy that's garnered national attention. The debate began after several pride flags were removed over spring break under BU's signage policy, which restricts outward-facing displays on university property. BU officials say the policy is content neutral and has been in effect since 1982. President Melissa Gilliam responded this week, saying BU's support for the LGBTQ+ community is still strong, but the policy must be applied consistently. Students and faculty are pushing back, arguing that the policy is being implemented selectively and saying that it limits free expression. I'm here with BU grad student Skyla Anderson, and she's going to tell us what she thinks about this issue.
Hi, I just think that flags create self-expression, and I think allowing them to be displayed outwardly is kind of the same as being displayed in your office, so I don't see a problem with it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Skyla. For Good Morning BU, I'm Catherine Markello. Back to you, Claire.
Well, that's going to do it for us this week at Good Morning BU. I'm Lily Chapman.
Stay safe and have a great weekend.